Whoa. Welcome to another episode of Pels in the Blender with your boy A. Davis. I got the prestigious, the esteemed, the reputable Chris Conner in the building.
Yeah,
Welcome to the show, bro.
man. Happy to support, bro. Happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me on, bro.
Absolutely appreciate it. Kind of want just kind of first off give you your credit. You know, y'all been following the Pels and you've been in this space for a little minute, going back to the Twitter Spaces and obviously how long y'all been covering on Pro Pels, bro. So what that's like? First off, having to like extensively follow this team with the ups and downs and the stress that they could put us through.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, it's interesting. I think the Twitter Spaces, like, for me, is like when things really like started to pop off in a different direction for I think a lot of people. But
Okay,
I before that, I was writing with for those that remember the Bird Rights. I had been doing work
thanks.
with them. I don't know if Pelican Debrief still around, but before that, it was I was blogging with them. So I had like a few years of like trying to of like learning more about what was happening behind closed doors,
Hmm.
and it's just a big difference, man. Like of learning some of that and still being connected as a fan because I've been a fan since '02, right?
Yeah,
So
when they brought the
yeah,
team back.
so yeah, so I mean, it's like you know when you it's different when you aren't writing or you aren't talking to media members or you ain't talking to certain folks or maybe you ain't got a source or you ain't got somebody to work for the team or something like whatever the case may be, and you just literally relying on what you're hearing from
Hmm.
from national media or from podcasts, like it's or what you see on social media, because at that point you strictly just focus on what you want the team to do, because you think you ain't got no choice to think that everything is being done in everybody's best interest.
Right.
And I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna tell everybody this. A lot of me wish that I could go back to that. Not saying I want to stop, but I wish that there was like a sense in I
You
didn't
didn't
know
know the
so much.
politics of it all.
I didn't know so much that was happening there. Some people will never know that I can't even talk about. So
Uh,
that part of it is interesting because you might hear one thing and then something gets released and you like, man, they lying.
yeah.
or somebody lied to me. Oh, that's not what I heard. So it's just it's uneven because you gotta, you kind of still kind of play to that. But at the end of the day, as we say on Propels Talk, and I know with you, Davis, we just want the team to win, bro. Like
Thanks.
that's really what it all come down to. Even with all the shit, the knows, the not know, like what people don't know, we want the team to win.
So I I am strictly a fan, right? So
Yeah.
I kind of like to approach my show and stuff from literally the fans' perspective. Like we think we know based off what we see, but it's really just coming at it from hope, growing up in the city, wanting the team to succeed in some form of fashion. So when we throwing out like potential trades or firings and stuff like that, like you only coming from, and the part of fan is meaning you're a fanatic. Like it's all coming from an emotional standpoint. Like we emotionally connected to this team. So like I appreciate y'all because y'all try to toe that balance between uh like what you actually know and the fan aspect of it. So when I'm speaking right now, just know like it's as a fan, and you know hopefully we could like live in that space and I won't put you in no situation where you kind of like, well, yeah, man, shit. I know that might not be true, but you know what I mean. To where you kind of having to walk that fine line.
Well, I mean, cause bro, at the end of it, like I'm still a fan, Like that's never gonna go away. I mean, cause I'm a fan of the city, I'm a fan of the game, and I'm a fan of the players. I'm a fan of a lot of I've had a chance to talk with some of the players. I got people inside the organization that
Ooh,
that has supported me. Like So it ain't like, you know, it's not like I want the team to do bad. It
Yeah,
just, you gotta like, so I never mind stepping down and just trying to talk like, you
yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
just on hope, on hoping something goes right. Like I never
yeah.
mind that, because a lot of other stuff, bro, it will really, it changes the way you view a lot of the stuff that you end up seeing day to day. It's like when somebody tell you, you hear all the time, like, you never want to meet your idols. You never want to meet the people that
Yeah,
you like, because you never know how it's going to go. Like, to me, in a lot of ways, this, you forget that this is all like a business. Like, it's entertainment, but it's also a business. There's a lot of business stuff that gets in the way of what I, as a fan, want to see. But if
what
we
makes the
strictly
most
keep it
sense.
up, yeah.
Yeah.
But if we strictly keep it about basketball, I could give you a bunch of different things from a positive light that I could see happening. I would like to happen, or we could, chop it up.
Mhm.
And I think, that's one reason I wanted to come on, because I know, like, from a basketball, if you eliminate some of the other stuff that we can't really control, we just keep it about basketball. There's some
Facts.
things that we can have like good conversations about.
Right. So that's a good segue. We actually gonna go ahead and start talking about basketball. So the one of the main things, obviously, the Pels had to create like new momentum, something like that. So they reached out, they hired Joe Dumars. Regardless of how they hired him, they did it. And I personally think Joe Dumars has been doing a good job of kind of resetting the structure of the organization and everything. So my thought also is, as I'm thinking about Joe, what is Joe planning, bro? Like, he has to have some kind of like overall grand scheme of like everybody who thinks like, man, if I got that job, I would do this, this, and this. And it's a step by step process. But what's the overall master plan for Joe Dumars? What you think?
I think I think he's trying to acquire talent by any means.
Okay.
I think he's trying to acquire talent in ways that maybe wouldn't easily get to New Orleans, or get to a market like New Orleans, or get to a franchise like New Orleans.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with that comes some risk and some confusion that a lot of us are gonna easily be able to criticize,
Right.
because, like, there's a difference between being aggressive, and being crazy, or being irresponsible, being
Mm-hmm.
reckless, right?
Right.
There's also a difference between being cautious, or scared, timid, and being patient. I don't
Okay.
know. I think with Joe, he's probably towing the line between being aggressive and reckless, but he'll tell you, and Troy Weaver, will speak to it as well. That's kind of how they always been. Now,
How they specifically have always been, or
how
how?
Troy's been, how
Gotcha.
Troy's been, and how Joe's been. To be honest,
Mm-hmm.
he's always been that way as an executive, as things went on. I mean, dating back to his earlier days in Detroit, it's just what he's been. Um, and with that, it's a lot of misses, but it's also some wins in there. So
Right.
he, I think he looked at a situation and he said, I gotta, I feel like I got a short time to kind of fix maybe some flaws from a previous organization. I got
Mm-hmm.
a star player that's really excited when he plays, but he barely plays. And there's some questions about how much he's dedicated to the game when the lights aren't on.
Mm-hmm.
So I may have to build a team that doesn't include him as well. So in the meantime, how can I get as many good reliable basketball players that have a reputation of being available as possible, just in case he doesn't play,
Yeah.
to make people want to come out and support the vision. So you get a Derek Queen, a dude that loves the game, okay,
Facts.
a young dude that can do a bunch of different things on the floor, but his floor should allow him to impact the game right away. A dude like Jeremiah Fears, another dog, another dude that played with a certain edge, is young, but has always played above with his age, with his driver's license or his state ID would tell you, his age
Yeah,
is. Um, you get a Sadiq Bey, a dude that's been a really, I've seen this a few different ways. Like I outside of him having his injury a couple years ago, Sadiq was a pretty good player and had always been on the floor. He'd been available. So
absolutely.
Kevon Looney always been available, never
Never
misses
missing
games.
game.
But he has a specialty, a couple
Yeah,
specialties. He gonna rebound the basketball. He gonna set solid screens. That's what he do. That's
reliable
always
player.
been his thing. But he ain't go. But he don't miss games. Jordan Poole don't miss games. So you start
Jordan
looking.
played
You
like
start
70 games 4 years in a row or something like that.
exactly. So you start
Mhm.
looking around. You like, okay, yeah, you bring in people with with an edge, with some type of excitement. And again, these dudes as well, all tough minded, like strong dudes for the most part, and they come with a little bit of they come with things.
They
I
come with a
think,
little bit of baggage.
yeah.
Not
Well, I
baggage, but
mean,
like little misfit toy kind of.
yeah, which in this kind of situation, you get enough of those dudes in the same locker room might allow you to build us against the world kind of like nobody think that we gonna be nothing. Nobody think, they picking us to win
Absolutely.
31 games. So I mean,
Hmm.
you add enough of these players, you add enough of these people coming from these situations, and they're not done. I think that they still gonna add another guard. We'll see what happens with, I mean, Jordan Hawk and so on. You got a lot of these dudes, and some of these dudes, bro, Alvin, that we talking about like gonna be playing via summer league that
Facts.
in the midst of all of the Queen and the fears and the Jordan Poole trade and Zion and all this other stuff, we haven't been talking about that also could be bubbling towards having a good season that's going to be important for them. So
I completely agree with that.
yeah,
Yeah. I was just running it the other day, and while I understand them having to kind of compensate for some of the misses, I guess you could say, or maybe not misses necessarily of the pass regime, but like maybe the pass regime not moving on fast enough, because the problem with the pass regime has been being too late as opposed to a year early. So I think they kind of compensating for that, but I don't think they're moving quite as fast on players like Hawkins, for example. Hawkins has you could see a world where Hawkins gets moved and there's nothing, nobody bats an eye. But you also could see a world where Hawkins year one in them first third of the season, you talking about a dude that was third in rookie of the year vote, you know. Started out last season, was averaging almost 20 when he got minutes. Now he's got to do some other things and be more consistent. But I'm pretty sure that dude after last season, that's like all of these dudes I think are prideful players, man. Probably win the off season, hopefully at least, worked on his game, worked on his body. You see him draft a Jeremiah Fizz. He already fighting with Jose to get playing time. Is it possible that what they seeing, and because I don't know exactly what they seeing, but they see Jordan Hawkins possibly taking a leap that we don't expect and banking on some of that type of growth from essentially being like the underdog. So I think Joe, with the players he's bringing in like Poole, people cast Poole aside in Washington. You're not even watching those games, man. People don't know what Jordan Poole looked like. Like and realistically, bro, the dude been a dog. If you would have told us, hey, you would have got pre-punch Pool, and I hate to say it that way, but they was looking at that dude as an actual, not a replacement for Steph, but like an heir apparent. You get what I'm saying? So
mm-hmm.
like, if you could bring in a Jordan Poole, if you could get Hawkins, this as a shooter to kind of stabilize and reach what they thought he was gonna reach, and you got the fears and stuff like that, you could see Joe plan somewhat coming together of us against the world and a lot of versatile players.
Yeah, I mean, and players with stuff to prove. Jordan
Mhm.
Poole could easily say. I mean, who knows? It ain't like from a reputation standpoint, the Pelicans are much better than Washington right now around the league. It's just the truth, right? But he
Right.
could say, all right, I went to an organization or to a place that really didn't have a plan, that
Right.
were kind of in disarray, kind of trying to find themselves, and I made the best of a situation. I got moved, for something, even dating back to the Draymond thing that had nothing to do with me. I went from getting an
Thanks.
extension to being someone that helped them, was a vital part of helping a team win a championship.
I was at least as good
To
as Clay.
you know, at least. And now I'm shift off to Washington, a situation now people looking at me a little different. They're only looking for my flaws and the things I'm not doing well versus last year he had a really good year under the radar. People really didn't look at it so
Right.
much to where when you pull up the numbers between him and CJ, Poole's right there. Like it's almost like identical, if
Yeah.
not a little bit better. And
Yeah.
he can also say, "Well, I've been on both sides. I've been on bad teams when I've had the ball, and I've been on a championship team, a contending team, in which I've had to play multiple roles to help them win." So it's
Mm.
a understated. There may be some understated ability there. I won't say necessarily as a leader, but as a conductor that Poole may be able to bring as a veteran, which is kind of crazy. I mean, think about, because I remember Poole being a rookie like yesterday, but now I mean he's a veteran in this league. You add that, bringing on his former teammate in Kevon Looney, like I see the vision. It just feels like it's a little erratic, but
Yeah.
you really can't call it until it's all the way done because um and I mean, and you know what, bro? I think a lot of this is always like Joe comes from an era where you had to earn your spot. You had to
Thanks.
compete. So if you talk about Jordan Hawkins, a situation where like we could trade him and get a veteran that's a little bit better than him, or maybe
Hmm.
trade him to break to get cap space to go and get a veteran guard that's out here right now. But if we're not getting a deal that we want, like you mentioned, what's the rush? He got a team option for
Exactly.
$7 million. Like, if he's anywhere close to what people pegged him as being when he came out of college, even what he showed for that stretch in his rookie season, or the
Hmm.
first 4 games, whatever it was of last season, he's going to be worth much more than that option. And if we want to trade him down the line, maybe by that time he's rebuilt some value. If not, we're talking about an eighth man in our rotation, a ninth man in our rotation,
That's
that
capable of hitting you for 35 on any given
that's playing for his career.
night. Absolutely.
Like he's playing for his future right now. So, I mean, what's the rush there to me? If
Yeah.
you do if you do ultimately end up moving him because you have to, I understand that you bring in, I don't know, an Amir Coffee or you get another guard, cool. But if you don't, I think you could do a lot worse than me trying to figure out what I'm gonna do with full $5 million of a Jordan Hawkins going into his third year.
I completely
Or
agree.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, going into his third season. So we kind of was talking about like what Joe Dumars is betting on a little bit. And when he came out, so this is big for me. I am what you would like to call a Zion supporter, right? I bag Zion not because Zion has been perfect, because he hasn't at all, like by any stretch. The missing the games, not taking care of his body, all of those things, the BS with the Mariah Mills, all of that stuff, right? All of that's true, and that's self-inflicted wounds. At the same time, this man he's been famous since he was 15, like super famous since he's 15 years old. Like you go to Duke and bro, they was pegging Zion to be like the next LeBron, like the biggest star since LeBron James. And you come to the Pelicans, and again, the first thing they say is, "Hey, this is not your organization." Oh, really? Okay. So then bruh, in the first game, the dude's going crazy against the Spurs, right? Hitting the threes, doing all of that. And just us being a Pelicans, what we do? We got to sit him down, take that loss. Like, I just think he initially out the gate was the organization was so erratic in their handling of him that it just caused him as a young, immature person to be eh, just kind of erratic as well. So I think what Joe is betting on is, hey, bro, I'm gonna finally put the responsibility on you. You the number one guy. I don't care what you got going on, but I'm gonna back you. We gonna announce you last, like stuff like we gonna treat you like the superstar that you are. So I need you to conduct yourself like a superstar. And we've seen when Zion is focused, right? And when somebody actually, I don't, I don't even know if you could say believes in him because he rises to doubt. It's not necessarily belief, but when people count him out and they doubt him, that's when you see Zion really become that monster and start going on those streaks. So I think with the Pelicans being doubted, with this the first time that somebody's actually really said, "All right, Zion, here goes the keys." I think Joe is betting on Zion being what it is we think he can be and holding him accountable for being what he knows he should be. Um, and I think that carries us into the season. Go ahead, what you think?
Um, I- the thing with Zion, man, is just it's so layered, bro. Because
Mm,
I think that I could if we just talk about basketball, we talking about a guy that hasn't added much from the guy that originally came out, but is
facts.
still one of the more uniquely dominant players you can find in this league. Talent wise, if we're talking about like unstoppable meter when he's at his best,
Mm,
you probably could name 4 players that have the ability to take over games or be unstoppable as he can when he's locked in on both sides of the floor.
yeah,
And one of the
absolutely.
things that 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 I point to if I got my optimistic hat on is
Mm,
the 2 best versions of Zion that I've seen was not last year, but the end of last year. Well, no, I'm sorry, the end of the year before last.
mm.
Brandon Ingram goes out, I think, with a sprained
Uh,
ankle or he sprains
the
his MCL
49
or
win, the
something.
49 win season.
Yeah. So he sprains his ankle. He also had a career high in games played, even missing the end of that year. There in Orlando. Well, Bi goes out, and Pelicans are they going back and forth between 5, 4, 6, trying to stay out the play in.
Mm,
And Zion goes on a run, and he's playing between the physical shape, what he was doing defensively, how he's producing defensively, what he was doing offensively. Some of the best basketball that we've seen. They beat pretty much anybody that was up, even teams that they were going back and forth position for in the Western Conference at the time. Kings, Golden State,
Suns.
Clippers, Suns. Whether it was on the road, at home, it didn't matter. On
Yep.
on his shoulders, you got that, and then you got the Zion that before he had the original hamstring injury, another
The one seed Zion 360 windmill against Phoenix.
yeah, that one where Brandon was also out for a particular time. And Brandon
Absolutely.
had another sprained ankle. Zion was playing the best basketball of his career, and it didn't
Was
go ahead.
that the BI toe injury? The BI turf
That was a
toe?
toe. That was a toe.
Yeah.
That was a toe. Yeah. I'm
Missed
sorry, that wasn't
20
ankle.
some straight games with the toe injury.
That was a toe. The toe injury that happened in Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what people forget, like we keep talking about once again, optimistic hat. We keep talking about well,
Mm-hmm.
who's gonna play around Zion, who's gonna play, who's gonna do this. I don't think that needs to worry, bro. I don't think people need to worry about that element because if if you remember, if you start thinking about who was on those teams that were winning basketball games for that period, bro, like
Yeah.
some of them guys wasn't the best fits. You know what I'm saying?
No.
But they were important players that needed to be there. There was Herb, there was Trey, Jonas was playing. You had Larry Nance, Najee was playing. Dyson was a
Mm-hmm.
was a part of that. Like you had some. You needed some help. You needed some bench presence. Jose was
Yeah.
around. Tight. But
You ain't have
it
a
was
team full of stars.
yeah, you didn't have the most prototypical spacing, rim protector, all the things that we would like the team to have. It didn't matter because Zion was spectacular, and you had just of enough depth to kind of help keep things afloat when he had to sit. And CJ was there. CJ was
Right.
healthy, and CJ was playing as well. So like it was just enough. But Zion was spectacular. Those 2 periods, those 2 Zions were the best 2 dudes I've ever seen. But the problem is
Oof.
an injury and always was around the corner. The
Yeah.
Philly game with a hamstring, and then the first time, and then the playing game against the Lakers,
Hamstring again.
hamstring again. So for everything that you're saying, I could go with it. But I gotta see when he is giving the best effort, if he even is able to be who he is.
Mm-hmm.
How does he able to be that guy over 60 games and actually get into the playoffs? I think everything you said about him being everything being on him, the responsibility, kind of being in his corner, it being his team, and Joe kind of leveling with him differently. I could level with you on the fact that I think that there was some things that was mismanaged, because I look at it from like how I would be if I'm walking into a building. All right,
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to be like, y'all lucky to have me. Everything
Yeah.
this is kind of supposed to be about me. I signed with Jordan. I'm the next LeBron. You want to ease me into being a star. Okay, so it's not my team. Drew Holiday's MVP candidate. Okay, cool. All right. Cool. We bring in JJ Redick, we bring in Derek Favors. Cool. BI, Lonzo. I kind of be on the side doing my own thing. Well, he did his own thing.
Yeah.
Now it's like, and now you come back to me like, Zion, why you not taking the rings? You told me you didn't want me to take the rings.
Exactly.
Now, that's that side though. The other side is we grown men. And at some point at the end of the day, we gotta hold
Do your
ourselves
job.
up to the we got to hold ourselves up to, like, we know what we're supposed to be doing as grown adults, grown men. It's on us at some point to not be looking for someone to tell us it's time. We got to take the step on our own to go ahead and say, all right, this is mine. I know what I need to be doing to put myself in the best situation. And that's the thing with Zion. Like, you ain't always got to wait for permission, dog. Like, you got a responsibility to yourself. Your words got to match your action, bro. If you say you love the game, you say, you want to win, you want to do this, you got to show the people, regardless of what's happening around you, that you control and what you can control every single day. And that's the thing with him that he hasn't taken advantage of. And people always going to look at him sideways about. So, regardless of what Joe's doing, regardless of the team, this build, if he's right, this team is gonna win. Ross say it all the time on the show. They are gonna win more games than they lose because he's that damn good. But you gotta ask, how long of a period can we expect that to have? What's the longevity in that? Um, and then from there, I think a lot of things just take care of themselves.
I completely agree. Let me so a couple of the stretches that you mentioned of Zion playing peak Zion, most of those stretches were without BI, right? Insert Trey Murphy, and Trey took his game to another level last season. And you saw the flashes of Trey being able to do that. Like you said, the 49 win season when Zion's going crazy, you saw Trey having 30-point games, shooting from deep. Like Trey was becoming Trey, and essentially moving forward now, I think the bet is not only on Zion, the bet is also on Trey to finally slide into BI's position. Hey man, you number two. Like, can you be what it is that you've been asking for? And how well can you produce in that role? So I think Trey being finally given the opportunity as well is something that Joe's betting on and saying, with these two dudes, we saw them produce at, like you said, they were the one seed for that stretch before Zion goes down. And then I think the 49 win season before you bring BI back, I think they got as high as the 4 seed before, a couple losses or something like that. But you saw with those two being your two-man catalyst and CJ helping in, those two able to really have the team be looked at in a very positive light. So what do
And
you think
her,
about Trey's impact?
look, and I also say Herb as well, because, like,
Mm,
look, I believe in the business parts of this shit. So if you telling me somebody today offered you a Mikal Bridge, this is totally separate. I'm gonna get back to the basketball part. But if you told me today that somebody offered you a Mikal Bridges type, the deal that Brooklyn offered Phoenix for Mikal Bridges.
the
If you
five
tell me,
six or whatever it
yeah,
was.
if you
Mm.
told me somebody offered you that for Trey, I would tell you to take it.
Ooh,
Now, I would tell you to take it. But um that don't mean I want Trey Murphy to go. And it's the
fact.
same with Herb. It's the same with Herb. If Herb's value well, until I know I'm a winning basketball team, there's not many players that aren't cost control. I'd be open to having a conversation about.
Okay.
But you know, the point is though, regardless if you're talking whether these players should be moved down the line, whether you believe that these players should be like their current value, or maybe if their value is a little bit higher than it will be down the line, needs to be taken advantage of and moved elsewhere for other things. Whether you believe that or you think that they're great, important players in regards to today, like I think you gotta talk about the importance of those two players together. And I think it's not just a Trey thing. It's not just a Herb thing. Trey and Herb Jones together is, I think, what makes this team, when they've been good, is
Hmm.
what makes them a different level of good,
Okay.
right? I think one of the things you saw last year, Trey took his game to a different level, but
With
you
no
didn't have
hurt.
Herb Jones. There was no Herb.
Hmm.
So, and yeah, you were missing depth in a lot of different things. But guys like Zion and Trey, they need dudes like Herb Jones, because Herb gonna do a lot of things either you don't want to do or you just
I
can't
ain't
do.
trying to. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm reserving energy, and my bench is already fractured. I'm already missing a certain amount of players. I need somebody like Herb Jones. Okay, if you plug in Herb Jones and you don't have Trey Murphy, I'm missing shooting. I'm missing I'm missing now the ability to create a lot more. I'm missing gravity offensively, regardless to you got to respect me 30 feet. I'm missing
The,
athleticism.
I would say the only other real athlete on the floor at the time, that really could go up and do something with it.
So now if I'm hurt, I gotta overcompensate. So now people really putting a magnifying glass on my ability to shoot or not shoot, because they look at that, the year where I shot over 40%, and
Hmm.
thinking, okay, well, you should be able to raise that volume and continue to do that. Well, the beginning of the
Most
year,
of that's wide open corner threes.
yeah, well, great, right? But now the magnifying glass different, and Trey Murphy's not playing. The beginning of last year,
Mm-hmm.
Trey wasn't playing. So now Herb, pressure on Herb to play a little bit better. He get hurt. Trey eventually come back. I think Herb tried to come back. Maybe they played 1 or 2 games together, but if they
Yeah.
did it all, they didn't play together. Those two players together, whether you think that they should be divided, you think one should go, whatever, as important I think as Trey is, and I think it's a very good point about him needing to be the second option and him wanting that. Dog,
Mm-hmm.
look, Trey, and I used to me and his dad would have a lot of different conversations. His first, second year is we talk a little bit his third year about just what Willie Green was putting him through, and also what Trey needed to improve on. But the
I can
want
really.
of Trey wanting more, I could do more, I could do more, I could do more, and then showing he could do more, and then not being him not getting the what he thought he should receive,
Mm-hmm.
um, as the placement and opportunity on the team, it wasn't matching up. Last year was the first year he fully got that opportunity, in which there was a plan for it, and his game fully matched it. Like,
Mm.
the playoff series against
OKC.
OKC, that was a little bit of an opportunity, but his game, he wasn't the same creator that he eventually became. He was getting there, but he wasn't the same guy that we saw him be last year. You fully got that on display because they had to go to it. So now
Mm-hmm.
they run different actions for him, different plays. He's showing a different level of confidence, dribbling the basketball, passing the basketball, all these different things. But even last year, it only goes so far. They
Okay.
lost a lot of games because you didn't have the depth, and you were missing other players that I think helps them win more games. It's very important that Trey has that opportunity to fully now be the guy that he's been telling people he is, and that a lot of us has been saying he is. But now I think it's not just about that, right? It's like, oh, someone's always missing. Trey's playing, Zion not playing, Zion playing, Trey there, Herb not there. Those three, those three are the key, because a lot of other guys can end up being important pieces of this core. I think Jordan Poole probably a fourth guy, but to me, in those 2 seasons that we talked about, and the hamstring, um, yeah, the both of the hamstring injuries,
Mm-hmm.
that was the That was the three that impacted games the most to me. Even with CJ being in the background, it's like CJ gonna score 20 points regardless. You know what I'm saying? He
Yeah,
gonna put rebounds, 4 assists. But
he
we
a
talk about
professional at getting his.
that like that's just you could just pencil that in. But we talking about the three most impactful, and I think the three that have the most synergy together on the floor is
Okay,
Zion, it's Trey, and it's Herb together. You get those three, regardless of what they've been working on or improvements that they make. I think that's just as important as it is just talking about what any of the individuals are doing. If we're talking about a team that has pressure on winning actual basketball games.
okay. Let me real quick ask you this then, because I think you did a really good job of showing the value of Herb. Because what most people do when they talk about Herb, you talk about Herb as like a singular entity. You know what I mean? Like a lot of championship teams, because Herb could just slide in or whatever. But I think what you just did was show the value of Herb specifically to Trey and specifically to Zion in those stretches when you see them three play extended time, you see the winning at I mean, top six, you know what I mean, at an elite level at times. Like again, they did reach the 1 seed in that season. You did see them reach the 4 seed in that season before, you know, some things happen. So maybe if you do get an extended streak of that, maybe you do have going into this season. And I guess I ask this: do you know if Trey and or Herb or both or either or which one will be able to start the season healthy?
I think they're both on track for being able to
Okay,
play to start the year. Yeah.
okay, because a fast start is extremely important for this team. But we'll kind of move past that a little bit. So we're in the midst of free agency. Obviously, you had the CJ trade where they bring in Poole and Sadiq Bey, and you already touched on the value of Sadiq Bey. I think Sadiq Bey kind of gives you, to a degree, what Najee gave you as far as like impact. Because Najee was when you needed Najee to play extended minutes or start or fill in, Najee could go get you 15 a night or something like that. And last year they sorely missed that because when everybody's going down, you don't have anybody that can step in and be at least a solid starting level player. So I think you kind of hit on that relatively well. They bring in Looney, a constant professional, you know what I mean, gonna do his job, can be somewhat versatile in a sense, depending on what they need him to be. But like they're doing a good job of filling in the pieces. So what do you think is, let's say you had to make a move, right? You get one or two moves. What's the two moves that you would make that you think would, I don't want to say put you as like, because there's the all in move, right? You're talking about we going for it. I don't know if that move is there to be made yet, but what move would you make to say, okay, this move, boom, we top six for sure?
Um, Injuries turned off.
Injury return. We
Uh,
you gonna get at minimum 70 games.
all right. So, um, somehow signing Chris Paul.
Okay,
Uh, I think Malcolm Brogdon. I mean, because I got to be realistic in regards to what I think that they what
they can do.
yeah, because I think that the what one of the things that they have that's going to be working for them is that they have a good mixture of like responsibility shared or shared responsibility.
Okay.
So, or they should on paper in regards to the parts that they've added. Too often we've had to see different dudes, different lineups, different parents have to overcompensate because
Mm,
of somewhere that they were lacking. Or it was too much pressure on unproven, or
mm,
young talents. So
yeah.
it kind of blinds or it skews the optimism or the perspective for what the fans watching. Because All right, Brandon Boston comes in and has a few good games, and we know the talent, we know the school he went to. Now it's like, oh man, he got to be a part of the future. What
Yeah,
do we? Like, I mean, I don't know, but am I gonna be upset if they cut him? Nah, the Clippers cut him. You
yeah.
know, Antonio
The Spurs
Reeves.
cut him.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Antonio Reeves came from Kentucky. You need shooting. And you got injuries all over the place. And I know that brother, one way or another, is gonna find his way to a 5 to 10 year career. I just believe it. Like he
Yeah.
don't work as hard as he did to get to what he did in college and to have some of the things he could do to not be okay. We're gonna see his future with the Pelicans, he on the summer league team, so on and so forth. But he gets cut. Okay. Like he's another guy that is still in a sense unproven. So
Right. Right.
we talking again about a 10th, 11th man. Like I would like him to be a part of the future, but it's a big difference between him possibly being an eighth man or seventh man, like he was last year.
Yeah.
Once
You're
at
not really getting on the
last year,
floor.
unless you 100% outplay somebody or somebody somebody gets hurt. That's just the reality. So when you look at the
Hmm.
team now, you added Sadiq Bey. You got Jordan Poole. Carlo now is going to be going into another year.
Hmm.
Eves Missy, who we'll probably talk about at some point, going into a second year after the large amount of minutes that he logged last year. You added Kevon Looney. You got Derek Queen. Um, Jose's still there. Jordan Hawkins got something to prove, and then you got a mix of other guys like Will Micah Peavy, who's going to be a specialist. Is he going to
Hmm.
end up surprising folks and making the team? Keon Brooks Jr. I'm a big fan of bro. Will he
He
end
did
up
well.
learning? Will he end up making the team? It's some other guys that I'm forgetting, but they got real competition, I think, in regards to this roster. But one thing that they need, for real, I think, is a veteran guard. And they need
Hmm.
a veteran that's comfortable and 100% sure in his role and his like what his value is to this roster and this group of guys. So even if it's somebody like Malcolm Brogdon, cool. But I think CP, because CP number one is gonna break. I mean, of course, he's talking about this could be his final year. Great. There's a story, and everything that people want to talk about in regards to him coming back to New Orleans and finishing where he started. And he's been on
Hmm.
tour like the past 4 or 5 years. He just going to places, building up the value of their house, and then
And
leaving.
then rolling out.
Yeah, I mean that's been his thing. This is another opportunity for him to do that, but you throw in the Jeremiah Fears part. Everywhere he's been, and he's impacted winning over the past few years, there's been somebody, a young guard, that's desperately needed. Well, I won't say desperately, but there's been a guard that he's been able to impact that we've
You've
seen.
seen it. Shea Castle.
Yeah, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying. So,
Mhm.
like, that's just been what he's been able to do. Jeremiah Fears would 100% benefit for somebody like that. And you throw in, the element of the fact that, hey, like DeJounte is out until December, January.
Mhm.
So the only real point guard that you have, I mean, and, again, I know folks want to see Jeremiah play right away, and I do too. I'm not sure how often that will happen out the gate. If it does, great, and he succeeds, awesome, great. But I'm not sure for a team that needs to win right away how quickly that will happen. So if you just say like the only real point guard you got right now, 100%, is Jose Alvarado. Well,
Facts.
you add Paul, who knows how to get everybody to basketball, and Chris Paul makes pieces fit like on puzzles for all the questions that we have in regards to like how will this work? Who gonna play? Who gonna shoot? Who gonna do this? Chris Paul will figure that out for you. He's that level of general, and it helps specifically when you're talking about a coach that I think has a lot of different offensive deficiencies. Chris Paul can help take away some of that stuff because Willie don't want to be involved that like he just don't that much offensively.
Mhm.
It's just not a strong suit of his. And so he likes his players on the floor to kind of figure a lot of this shit out so he don't have to. So I think being able to provide easier opportunities, buckets, alignments on the floor. You need something like that. It would really be, I think, it'll be a jolt of energy to the fan base and everybody involved. But more than anything, it brings, I think, a winning element, someone on the floor that can make an impact in a position, I think, of need for this team to start the
Mhm.
season. It just makes too much sense to me.
I agree. Two points about Chris Paul. I think again, man, you do a really good job of like explaining the value of the player beyond just the player itself and what he provides on the floor. So like as you were talking and you mentioned what he would do for Willie, also what I think people would forget in that is that Willie Green probably respects Chris Paul from his time in Phoenix, from their previous history, that
They've
he
been
will
teammates
probably
twice.
exactly he will probably in New Orleans and in LA. So he will probably allow CP to run things a way that you've never seen done before, which might give you more of a fail safe on the season because Willie trusts Chris like probably more than anybody he would in the league between reputation, stature, and all of that. Also, not to mention the optics of the Chris Paul farewell tour. The only question I guess I would have is if you were somehow able to convince Chris to come home, right? And I do call it that him coming home. Would that would you put Jordan Poole on the bench? Now he said he was willing to do whatever it was, for Chris because I think in the interview Chris was like, man, I'm trying to start my final season. So if one of the conditions of Chris Paul coming back and all of the benefits that you had was, hey man, I ain't trying to finish my last season on the bench. Like, how would you weigh that in with bringing him back?
Well, this is why while I want that to happen, it won't happen because now he says that, but if the Pelicans find a way to offer him more money than anyone else, which they would probably have to, than
Mm-hmm.
what he's receiving on the market, he might change his mind a little bit on that and say, all right, well, you might not start CP, but you're gonna close because the person that would fall to the bench would be Herb Jones, more than likely. Jordan Poole ain't coming off the bench.
No, not for
I mean,
34 million, not for 30 something million.
yeah. So I mean, it would be CP, Poole, Zion, Trey, Misi. That would be the
Okay.
starting lineup more than likely. And I mean, problem with that is I I want
The
Herb Jones
defense.
starting.
Yeah.
I want but it ain't even just like the defense. Like
The
man,
value you expressed earlier
it
about
just
her Trey Z.
yes, yeah. Like I need that core together because Trey, like Herb, is like he's what I would call like a defensive connector because
Mm-hmm.
he's not, on defense, he does a little bit of everything. I think sometimes we focus too much on, oh, this dude locking this, other dude up. He ain't score, blah, blah. But I could do a little bit of that. But I done also seen SGA give him fits. It's gonna happen.
Absolutely.
I done seen Luca drop 50 on him in 3 quarters.
Yeah.
Okay, like it's that's what it is. But I've also seen him locked down, and I see him just be the defensive quarterback to where he's taking care of it. Like five always called him Air Reed because
Mm-hmm.
he's not supposed to be where you don't think he is because he's so smart. And then offensively, he's not leading the charge. He's not, I know folks wanted, to see Point Herb for a long period of time. That's
Mm-hmm.
not really the thing. But what is the thing is I'm gonna make the right basketball play, and I'm probably one of the better transition players when I'm right and I'm healthy that you are gonna find specifically on this team. One of the
Mm-hmm.
best transition players that he has once he does have the basketball, but he can do a little bit of everything. I need that value to start games. Like
And he more
those,
clutch than people think.
yeah, 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 he is. We didn't see him at the
Mm-hmm.
free throw line. We didn't see some of the he not Herb just man, like look, bro, like he's a little bit better of a glue guy. And I think you need the other guy. Everybody's a little bit more calm when they see it used to be five, but now number two is on the
Mm-hmm.
floor. I need that guy starting. So that's why I don't think ultimately will happen. And you'll probably have to settle for, a
Brogdon.
Malcolm Brogdon, or somebody like that. I'm just throwing out names because I think it has to be a point guard or maybe
Hmm.
someone that they trade for, a veteran of sorts. But um, I just think CP makes the most impact this year of winning, and it's the perfect. People will feel a lot better about redshirting or keeping Fears kind of at a low minute total if he's playing out the gate. Then
Hmm.
they would feel more comfortable with that
You can
if
see
Chris
the
Paul was
long
back in
term
New Orleans.
vision. You can see
Yeah,
the long term vision of,
yeah.
man, he's probably getting great behind the scenes work and stuff like that. Pause. That sounded crazy, but you could probably you could probably get a bunch of that when if you bring in CP and whatnot. So I definitely understand, and I listen. CP is one of my all time favorite players, so I would love for them to be able to make that move. Um, kind of want to go forward a little bit and kind of, in a sense, spin it because you were talking about Herb and the defensive impact. Spin it to some of the younger players and how Eves, Eves, Queen fears to a degree because we still kind of have to see. But I think all those guys are going to be really good. Summer League getting ready to crank up. You got the first game Thursday. You'll really get to see those guys. What kind of impact do you think we know for sure Eves is going to play. More than likely, that's your starting five. But Eves' impact, Queen, and Fears, what kind of impact you think they could have on the team moving forward? And what do you expect to see from them in the summer?
So I expect Queen. I mean, I'll start with Queen. I expect Queen to play with a chip on the shoulder, which is going to be interesting because that could go one or two ways. That could be somebody putting too much pressure on themselves. Maybe a little, maybe turn on the basketball a little too sloppy. Maybe getting in foul trouble. Maybe just being missing shots he normally would make before he starts to figure it out. I can see that, or I can see him really just setting the world on fire right away. Um, and but I know one way or another he's going to be he's out there with something to prove right away, and he's going to be playing with a different level of physicality and force, as Willie Green would say. Um, that should go a long way. And I think that this team, whether in summer league or once we get to October, are going to need right away. Fears, man, guard is such a tough position, bro. But I think Fears got a different level of like cool, but also like um
Dog,
dog in him to where the more and more I get a chance to think about it, I'm getting more comfortable with him. I typically, man, 6'4", 6'3" guards that weigh 180 pounds, that can't shoot just yet, that ain't hyper athletic. I don't know how to really predict where their career will end. But so the best thing that I could do as an observer, as an analyst, is analyze what you've done and the type of situations that you've been in and how you handled them. And whether Fears has been on a big stage, leading Oklahoma to the tournament, being the second youngest freshman in college basketball, starting out the year 17 and performing the way that he did as a true freshman, that just tell me mentally you wired a little different. So summer league ain't gonna be anything for him. I don't think. I think he's gonna be just fine. And I think his goal is because he's always been ahead of the curve mentally.
mm,
The same way he did to succeed the way he did at Oklahoma. I think he's gonna be thinking, what can I do now as a precursor to showing what I'm gonna have to do to earn minutes and play right away? Because he don't want to sit on the bench. I'll tell you right now, he
mm.
wants to play. So
Now when you see Jose, I'm sure he see
so
Jose and like
so this
I
is
don't in his mind.
yeah. So this is an audition of sorts for him. Like, okay, I gotta show these people. Like, if I go out here and I score 30 points a night, it don't really matter as much as if I go out here and I set up the offense and I, you know, have a certain amount of assists and I do this. Now, if he could do both, great. But he's gonna want to have to show whatever this team has told him that they think his role is gonna be, whatever you think that this team is lacking at that position, he's gonna have to show that he can excel at it. And then maybe that gives him an early opportunity for, as the roster currently stands, minutes with no DeJounte and Jose being your only point guard. We'll see how that changes. So I'm a little less worried about him. But then Misi, man, so Misi's another example. I throw him into the Herb category from this perspective of like if you say, we talked about it a lot in the draft. If you use Eve Misi to get you a substantial upgrade,
Mm-hmm.
okay, like I get it because like it's fine. I could totally see based off his rookie year or based off what you think his potential being, maybe it makes sense to get maybe a better modern fit at that position, especially if you drafting Derek Queen. But thing is, with him, cost control, he's young. You could bring up the fact he only been playing basketball 5 or 6 years, so on and so forth. And he kind of hit the ground running last year. He did. If you'd have told me, I didn't expect him to play 25 minutes a game, and they put him in a
Mm-hmm.
bad situation. But for him, it could be one of the better things. It could be a blessing in disguise because he got to learn, see, and be in so many different situations for someone that needed to, like, he needed to play. He gotta, like his basketball clock gotta catch up a little bit. And the only way to do it is to actually be out there.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been the G League as much. It wouldn't have been just practice. It wouldn't have been, no, he needed to be physically out. He needed to be out there and playing around these different guys. So with that, we saw his flaws magnified. We saw what he couldn't do, maybe as a rim protector just yet, even if he is a shot blocker. We saw some of the defensive rebounding issues. We saw that he needed to get stronger. We saw that some of the things he had to do in regards to processing. But some of that, time will take care of that. I think for him, his goal should be I'm playing 2 games.
Mm.
And the way that I play 2 games, and I know he got like games like, with I think what he's playing with Africa, or he's playing with
Yeah,
someone.
yeah.
He's playing
With
with someone.
Cameroon.
It might be. It might be. It
Mm.
might be. Coming up. But his goal should be I'm gonna play very, very well. I'm gonna dominate. And regardless of what my obligations, my other summer obligations are, you would not want me to play any more games. You will have seen all you needed to see, and I'm gone because we've been talking about the center position. And this team needed to add a center, and will they sign this guy, and will they go after this guy, and what center could they overpay Brook Lopez to come in, and they need a veteran center, and all these different Clint Capella, and Eves might be saying like, nah, that's me. Like
I'm all in.
I'm I'm that guy. You don't need to do any of that, and I'm gonna put in the work to kind of show you of that. And I think for a dude with his skill set, with his athleticism, even if he's not like perfect, even if he's not a future superstar, I think going into year 2, I think you owe it to him, and you owe it to yourself to
Mm.
see exactly what he's going to be. And I mean, I think the early start for him is just going out there and dominating, going out there dominating defensively. Similar to Fears, like what's going to win you minutes when in a situation where you will probably be sharing minutes. You'll probably be, I don't say a co-starter, but Willie Green's
Mm.
always played his centers, shared his centers. When he's had them, 20 minutes at a time, 22 minutes, 23 minutes. If that's going to be your role, they're going to also go to small lineups. What's going to keep you on the floor? Rebounding defensively, not just offensively. Um, Being able to be more of a rim protector, not just a shot blocker, and then showing offensively in stretches how easily you can get your own. Considering and they're not throwing the ball down to you to the block
Nah.
multiple times a game and saying, Eves, go get us points. That just ain't gonna happen. But how
Mm.
quickly can you process and score? How quickly can you make things happen? Like that's gonna be what's important for him, for a dude that's gonna have limited touches. Um, but I mean, I expect him to have a really good summer. But that aggression, like to show, I think at the trio, the aggression of those three, the intensity, how the urgency that they play with,
Mm.
that's what I'm going to be interested in seeing, and I think that they could have some decent success.
So I'm gonna just kind of piggyback a little bit off of that. Ask one more question to get you out of here. Um, as far as Eves goes, and I was thinking about this. The benefits you have of being at, like you said before, him getting all those minutes he got. But the benefit you get of being as bad as they were was that yes, he got the minutes, but he's able to go into the off season now and say, man, I'm nowhere near strong enough. I'm nowhere near physical enough. Like my first step isn't as fast as I thought it was. I missed too many lives. Like, and the one thing you saw, and I kind of hit on this before previously, but like one of the time frame from summer to when preseason and training camp is a lot of time to do work in between that too. So if you take Eve Misi and the work ethic that he showed to go from last year's like when his college season ended to how he looked in summer league last year to where he was in the beginning of last season, that was dramatic improvement. Even throughout the season, one of the things that I think hindered him is, I mean, they had DeJounte for one game, but in that one game, you saw Eves almost like close to a double double off of just being able to screen and catch a lob. You know what I mean? So I think them having, hopefully, with Jordan Poole and Trey being healthy, more guard play, it opens it up for him. Queen being able to do some of that. Joe was talking about having more play creators, advantage creators. I think it's gonna make Eve's job so much simpler. Um, moving forward. And I think
Yeah.
Eves, Queen, and Fears, that trio you might look at in the future as like how you mentioned Herb, Trey, and Z.
There you go.
You Yeah, exactly. You might have another kind of new core, obviously for the future and beyond. But three dudes, kind of how when her Trey and Jose got their opportunities, they hit the ground and brought a new. You was like, man, those three dudes got to play. Well, you might see some of that with Fears, Queen, and Misi if they're able to do what it is that the people that believe in them at least, think they're gonna do, and I think that takes you a long way.
Yeah, yeah,
But go
that
ahead.
no, that's a really good point, Alvin. I think that those I didn't even think about that, but that's a really good point. I mean, I think with Queen and Fears, we keep talking about those two, and yeah, they might be your franchise pillars going forward. Depending on what happens with Zion, what happens with Trey, but they are all on the same timeline. But you think about it a little bit more, and well, Misi's coming into a second year. Why not? Is there somebody else that maybe that we're not thinking about? Maybe that went under, like, who fits well with this young nucleus. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
And or with the guys that are going to be given the most opportunity starting out, because we know Queen and Misi should play a decent amount of minutes together. We don't know about Fears just yet. We don't
True.
know about Micah Peavy or Keon Brooks Jr. or Antonio Reeves or Hunter Dickerson. We don't know. But
Mhm.
we know more than likely Queen and Misi are going to play well together. Well, are going to play together. And the thing is that I want to see how they fit together on the floor. How do they space how is, if you wonder about spacing, how will those two in today's game, how will those two
Mhm.
be able to play well and complement each other for you be able to see, what Queen talked about? Misi's gonna love him because he throw lobs. Okay, let's see. Let's see how that works when the floor shrinks. Because those two, they may have two of the only, they may have one of the only lineups that's really out there that are, well, I can't say double big because that's where the league is kind of going back to, but
Mhm.
they could be one of the more physical lineups that you see out there for summer league. And I think NBA ready made when we're talking about, you know, uh strength and so on and so forth. But those two playing together, I think, is going to be really important. I didn't think about how they fit as a core, but they could, those are conversations that they could be having. Go ahead.
I started out a much lesser version, but similar to how when how AD and Boogie were able to work so well together, and clearly those two are elite level talent. But if you could see Queen handling the ball, and they have a 4 or 5 pick and roll. If you could get Missy to just give me Tyson Chandler, you know what I mean? It opens up the game a lot more. Let
Yeah.
last thing, and then I'm gonna get you out of here. But so, and I know you'll probably this changes depends on what happens with the team. But we just saw the 31 win over under and all of that. Man, with where the team is right now, what's your optimism? Because again, I'm a fan, man, and I'm optimistic. And we talked about a lot of things that could really work in the Pelicans' favor. And to me, I might be in my own with this one, but I don't think the West is as strong as people think it is. So I definitely think you got to be healthy, obviously, but other teams have to be healthy as well. Like we've seen other teams get hit with, an injury bug, and you saw Sacramento be the 3 seed one season. So anything can happen in the West. But what is your outlook based on the team where they at right now? Where do you think their ceiling is, I guess? And are there anything that could like affect the ceiling based on what it is that we have that we know right now?
So I think the issue with the ceiling part is that if you have a below average, or if you're a Willie Green fan, you got to say at best he's average as a coach to me. But if you have questions about how good your coach is, and you have questions about the consistency of your best player or the availability of your best player, your ceiling is always going to be hard to call. It could be all over the place, you know. So that's what makes the ceiling part hard. I do think 31 wins is probably a little bit low, and is going based off of the year that they had last year. If the team was anywhere close to healthy last year, I think even if they would have won,
500.
it could have been 37 games, 500. They would have been battling, but maybe, I don't know. But I know that they would have been more. They would have won a lot more games than they ultimately ended up winning. Some of the strategic tanking, some of the strategic sitting wouldn't have happened. That probably gives you some more wins. The depth isn't as, they don't blow as many leads as they did, or against certain teams. Like, just there's a lot of things that probably change. Health pending. Maybe you don't want to end up trading Brandon, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, yeah.
But so the ceiling part, though, I think is tough because of Zion and Willie Green. But if you're asking me about optimism, I mean, again, like I think I like a lot of parts on the team, and I like what it's going to do. If I just look at the habits and the tendencies of the players that I have seen play in New Orleans over the past few years, you know, like Jordan Poole, for example, he's not walking into a situation where he got to recreate the wheel. He either
Fact.
say, I'm gonna fit around these players the same way I did in Golden State in a different way based off their strengths, or I'm just gonna watch a bunch of CJ McCollum film and build off that. Because that's really all I gotta be. I can do that and be just fine, and add a
Mhm,
little bit of my own individual creativity elements, a little bit of my flair on it, and be just fine. Nobody's gonna
mhm,
blink an eye. That would work. That's probably saying a lot, but that's what Jordan Poole could be saying. Um, Derek Queen won't be starting out the gate. I don't think
mhm,
so.
mhm,
Barring injury. So him being in a situation where he just coming off the bench, if you smart, you just tell him, "Yo, be who you were in Maryland." Because when you come off the bench, we're gonna be giving you the basketball. We
mhm.
gonna need you to stabilize or enhance certain lineups, and the responsibility gonna be in your hands day one to do that. Cool. So the the depth element is gonna be a lot. It's just gonna be a lot better than maybe it was in previous years. The amount of creativities, bro. I mean, Sadiq Bey. Nobody's talking about Sadiq Bey, bro. But
No.
he got to be he got to be. We talk about a dude that could play 3 to 4, whatever the case may be. He averaged like 15 points a game for his career. So he in the slot, and he's still, I think he was 25, 26. Like,
Yeah.
he's comfortable in any of these situations. Can shoot the basketball, can score. Like, he gonna be your eighth, ninth, 10th man. Jose, not more than likely being in a situation to where he's probably not going to be having to do as much when
Mhm,
the team is missing so many different guys. He can maybe go back to being where I think he belongs in this league, as a bench player, I you know, I look DeJounte's out, welcoming back Herb, Trey, I think is gonna play a role. They just when we're talking about depth, they have more options and they have more available, I think, helpful players, and that's just the ones that we know right now. You got guys that may um if they're anything better and they're not put in like if Carlos not going to be starting, that kind of helps. That probably helps. But
Yeah.
but those reps he got last year matters. Misi may not play 25 minutes a game this year, but going into year 2, those reps matter. So hopefully you should be looking at a roster and a situation with team that just have so many other guys that they can depend on in better situations. The roster I think it still has some flaws. I think the shooting element I worry about. I think, Kevon Looney is going to be a plus, but um, the fact that they still don't have a stretch five of sorts and that kind of archetype is really put on Carlo at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how that's all gonna shake out. But the roster is and appears to be much deeper. It has a solid mix of veterans, young veterans,
Mm-hmm.
and I think young talent. So the optimism I think should be there, but for what exactly? So better than 31 wins? Absolutely. I don't think that they're
Mm-hmm.
going to be anywhere close to that. But can they contend for a playoff spot? I think so. Can they get a playoff spot? 100%. It's hard to tell with me having questions about number one, um, and Willie Green. But if we just talking about the roster in itself, I like a lot of the different things. If we eliminate what some of the other things in regards to Dumars, I like they should have a really fun training camp. And that's
Yeah.
where it should start. And I think from there, I think you got a chance to really build a team that could surprise some folks and take a leap that maybe either they shouldn't or you shouldn't expect them to. As long as Willie Green and Zion don't hold them back.
I I think I first off I agree with you and I appreciate all of that, man. I think Zion, while has been unreliable, and I've hinted at this in one of our shows, we're not really concerned about Zion as a player. Willie as a coach, like we just know he's not a quality coach. So them having to overcome that's the challenge to me, and I think they did a good job where Willie only really plays 8 people. The 8-man rotate, like when he's really trying to win, the 8-man rotation that he's gonna have to play. Who you got coming off the bench is either gonna be like Queen, you know, Hawk, Jose, people you trust, Sadiq Bey, like the 8, 9-man rotation that he's probably gonna come off the bench with are people that you trust. Looney, somebody that you know they kind of mitigate what it is he could fuck up
So
basically.
so I'm gonna give you an example, Alvin, on what I look at this like. So before I got with my girlfriend and she moved in,
Mm,
and I used to go grocery shopping,
mm,
I had an idea what I would eat, but I would buy a bunch of random shit. Bunch of random shit that didn't make sense. Cause I ain't know how to organize that at the time, but it worked for
mm,
me. A bunch of random stuff. She came in here and by herself helped me with that, helped me organize the shit, helped me actually plan like meals throughout the week and so on and so
mm,
forth. All right,
mm,
well, you should go with this. You like this, you eat a lot of this. All right, do this out. You probably save some money. Maybe you
mm,
spend a little bit more money, but it all makes sense versus some of the random stuff that you buy.
mm,
Well, Joe feels like he's like stuff in the refrigerator with
mm,
just a bunch of stuff right now. He like the fridge gonna be stocked full, but I don't know what's going together. I don't know how it's all gonna fit. I don't know how these meals. I don't know how
mm,
these meals gonna look because I can't trust that the person that I have at the helm or the person that's cooking the food 100% is gonna know how to make this shit work or put together a good product with a little bit less, of options. So
yeah.
just in case the cooks suck, or just in case um, the person that's preparing the food ain't doing what they're supposed to do, you're gonna have a shit ton of options. You're gonna have backups, and hopefully it's gonna play itself out. I think the issue in past is that wasn't the case. That
Mm-hmm.
the backup options were thin. They were limited. And it fell on too many shoulders of people that we knew were gonna break down. And once that happened, everything changed. Larry Nance, I was high on his stay, not just because of what he, his interactions with me, but I thought Larry Nance, as a change of pace big, did some really good things for periods of time. But you could only get it for 20 games because Larry would eventually break down. He was not meant to be a backup five and deal with what that means. And a dude that eventually played way more minutes than he was supposed to play. Shit adds up.
Absolutely.
You don't have a third option there. What happens when he goes down? You need more than just your small ball lineups. Okay, Zion, Brandon, y'all can handle the ball. Jose, someone that can handle the ball. CJ can handle the ball, but you needed another option. Too much responsibility on them, especially when they go down. I think now in each category, each shelf, if we're still talking about refrigerator stocking, I think slowly but surely they've added replacement options and available things that should be well for a long time. I think they've added more of those just in case shit happens, which probably raises up your floor because some of it
Mm.
will be figured out on its own. You just maybe need one or two more things, and whether things go as planned and Zion plays 60 games like you said, or he doesn't, or Willie Green stinks and gets fired again, you may have enough to be able to replenish and continue to
Mm.
go forward and still have a solid season. But as always, it's a bunch of ifs at play.
Yeah. Well, man, I really appreciate you coming on, bro. Like, you understand, like, kind of what it means. You propels all of y'all, bro. I'm tapped in all the time with all of the episodes and whatnot, bro. Just commenting or whatever. Y'all absolutely were the main reason I decided to kind of get the show going and stuff like that. So I appreciate you hopping on, jumping in or whatever. And again, if ever y'all, want somebody to come through, little whatever, I'm available, bro. So again, I appreciate it, man. Chris kinda in the building in the blender. And listen, when we hop on that NCAA, you know what I mean, it is up. I don't know if you get
Uh,
down with the Madden. I don't know if you get down with the Madden, but anything.
probably,
Okay, NCAA,
probably.
the Madden, we gonna have to get that popping and see what's good.
I'm about to. I'm listen. Any of y'all, man. I'm about to embarrass him. I don't think. And I don't even. I ain't even like I used to be at this shit. But I'm telling y'all, I'm really like that. Lee don't know. And what's gonna happen is that I'm about to like today. I'm gonna set up my Twitch, and I'm gonna embarrass anybody. I'm gonna including Alvin when it's time. I'm telling y'all. I just don't think. I don't think nobody will fuck with me. I just
Like
don't.
no
Not no
losses,
regular
like
person.
zero losses are like we talking about 21 skunk kind of belt
We're gonna
ass.
see. We're gonna see. We're gonna see. I don't know. I try to give people the ability to kind of I ain't gonna say I'm a 21 skunky,
Yeah,
but I
yeah,
think
yeah. But you ain't
but
no loss.
I don't think I'm losing many games to many people, bro. So we gonna see. We gonna see.
All right, man. I really appreciate you for coming through. That's gonna do it, man. Like, share, subscribe, you know, and be looking out for more content coming through. We out.